Now, it could easily have become the eve of the war, with IPOB militants and the Nigerian police force ranged against each other in Anambra State this weekend, the ballot forgotten as both sides square off in a bloody contest for supremacy. But then a sudden, unexpected, potentially positive turn. Across the yawning gulf between the two battling sides, a passionate, ringing appeal purportedly made by the elders of the southeast region and heeded by IPOB, leading to a change of heart and what could be, in the most hopeful case, a bridge to peace, and in the worst, just a temporary lull in escalating hostilities, or no lull at all. But whatever the case, the Anambra election appears now to be definitely on, and the question has shifted from separatist-induced insecurity to the other kind of violent persuasion and voter intimidation caused by politicians and the political parties themselves, and to the preparedness of the Electoral Commission, INEC, to deliver a free and fair vote. Well, in a moment, we'll cross to the Anambra State capital, Awka, to speak with Arise correspondent Abel Ejikeme. But first, I'm joined in the studio by Professor Jibrin Ibrahim, Senior Fellow at the respected think tank, the Center for Democracy and Development, and by Arise Abuja Head of News and Political Editor, Sumner Sambo. And thank you very much indeed to both of you for joining us. And let me come to you first, Sumner. The campaigns are over. They ended yesterday, Thursday, and there are reporting restrictions in force from today. Tell us what we can and cannot say.
Well, we can no longer play political jingles. The politicians can no longer address campaigns, and broadcast stations are also not allowed to feature them. And generally, there is a compliance, even by the Independent National Electoral Commission, on what needs to be put out at this point and not, because this is a sensitive period. Election materials have been distributed, so there's controlled information on where the sensitive electoral materials are being sent to at this point and where they are not being sent to, and who should handle that and who shouldn't. And electoral officials themselves are barred from granting interviews except if there's an incident that needs to be addressed quickly. And of course, police authorities are also declaring a time when there will be restriction of movement on election day, and what citizens ought to do and what not to do, different from the time for going out for voting and end of voting.
But the restrictions affect the candidates, not members of the party.
Yes, definitely. Members are free to move around, but
no, what I mean is that you can talk to members of the party.
Yes, you can talk to members of the party as long as it doesn't lead to campaigning on behalf of the candidates. But if there are teething issues that need to be fixed before now and election day, that will be done. And of course, you have the National Broadcasting Commission also issuing out a guideline asking broadcast stations to be very careful, because the elections into Anambra also affect the Southeast and the entire country when it has to come with rhetoric coming, especially from separatist groups, other agitators. So it needs to be not gagging the media, but asking the media to respect its own rules of engagement.
Okay, thank you for that. And Professor Ibrahim, the Center for Democracy and Development, hugely respected think tank. What's your overall assessment of the level of preparedness for this election? Have all the boxes been ticked as far as you're concerned?
Well, they've been ticked as far as it is possible to tick them. We are concerned that the election campaign was not normal. People didn't feel safe enough to move around and say and do what they wanted to do. We are concerned that the massive deployment of security personnel, while necessary, may be an intimidation to many voters who would fear to come out. And of course, the stay-at-home order by IPOB, which has just been lifted, has been a basic concern to all of us, because we believe that if Anambra doesn't hold elections, it will be a signal that the democratic order in the whole country would be at risk.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, for setting that out. Let's cross now to the Anambra State capital and speak to Arise correspondent Abel Ejikeme. Good to see you, Abel, and thanks very much indeed for joining us. What's the mood on the streets of Awka where you are? I understand people appear to be staying at home in spite of the fact that the stay-at-home order has been lifted.
Yeah, good to see you again, Charles, and a very good afternoon to you. Not necessarily people staying at home due to the sit-at-home order. I understand yesterday and today were declared public holidays by the Anambra state government for people who wants to go about getting their PVCs and who want to go back to their various local governments to cast their votes. Yesterday and today were provided by the state government for residents in Anambra state to actually do that. The mood here in Anambra state is very calm, very peaceful. People are going about their normal activity. There are no signs whatsoever of trouble setting out anytime soon. And everywhere's been calm. INEC has kept on reassuring us that they are ready for Saturday's election. The Inspector General of Police has also told us that his men are here to ensure that INEC personnel and residents as well as voters go about their legitimate business as well. Charles.
Right, well, thanks for clearing that up, because, I mean, we've been seeing photos of deserted streets and so on, and even though we're aware of this, these public holidays that you talked about, there was that sneaking suspicion that it may also have to do with fear of IPOB. But you mentioned INEC. Your sense is then that they are ready to deliver this election competently?
Yeah, very well. There's no doubt about that. The INEC chairman has consistently said they are ready to deliver to the people of Anambra State a free, fair and credible election come November 6th. That's just tomorrow. Just 2 days ago, Mahmoud Yakubu, that's the INEC chairman, told stakeholders here in Awka, the Anambra State capital, that of the 14 items on the activity schedule of the commission, that they've actually carried out 13 of them, and the one just left is the voting proper, which will be done tomorrow. He has assured everyone who would definitely care to listen to him that the commission is ready. Voting materials have been sent to the N21 local government areas. They left the Central Bank here in Awka yesterday to the various and local governments. And so far he has said so far that everyone is on ground there to ensure that tomorrow election is done in a hitch-free manner. Charles.
And we heard the INEC spokesman earlier talking about the system that they're going to use to conduct that ballot. I understand they've got a new, more technologically advanced system. Is it a complicated system? Can the voters easily understand how it works? Has it been demonstrated to them, or it doesn't involve that kind of thing?
I think the only time that new system was or device was used was in Isoko South 1 constituency by election in Delta State. And 2 days ago, the INEC chairman attested to the fact that the security situation here in Anambra State has not really helped the commission in ensuring that people in the state know much about these new device that will be used tomorrow. So I also spoke with some civil and society group members yesterday, and they were also raising the same concerns that they are not sure the populace, the people here in Anambra State are familiar with this new device. How well will it go? It only remains to be seen. But INEC is really assuring us that yes, this device is competent, this device is well equipped, everything. They don't even need the Z-pad anymore, because everything about the Z-pad is now into that BVAS device, and it's ready to be deployed. According to Mahmoud Yakubu, he said these devices have been sent already to the 21 local government areas of Anambra State, where they will be deployed for the election proper tomorrow. Charles.
And Abel, I understand they had a shortfall of ad hoc staff, and they were bringing in youth corps members, I think, from Enugu. I mean, they were due to arrive in Awka today. Do we know if they've now arrived?
Yeah, I was speaking with a very senior official in INEC just this morning, and he also confirmed what you've just said. INEC, in collaboration with the National Youth Service Corps, have been bringing in youth corps members from Delta State as well as Enugu State to complement INEC staff here in Anambra State. He said many of them have been trained. All of them are receiving the required training, ready to be deployed ahead of the election tomorrow to give their best in ensuring that the election is hitch-free. They are here. What's his name again? Festus Okoye told me just this morning that members of the National Youth Service Corps are in Anambra State now. They are ready to be deployed. Many of them are already on ground. Many of them will still be sent to the local governments today, ready for the election tomorrow. Charles.
And Abel, what about the provision of security? From what you're seeing, I mean, can all the voters who come out to vote on Saturday be assured of adequate security?
Oh, certainly they would be assured of maximum security. Over 30,000 police personnel have been deployed here in Anambra State alone, not even counting the National Civil Defense Corps members, the Nigerian Army, the Navy, the custom officers, immigration, and the rest. So here, you can be guaranteed that it is fully secured. Just 2 days ago, Mahmoud Yakubu was telling us that security personnel, non-armed security personnel, will be deployed to the polling units, while armed security personnel will be standing just outside those polling units to provide security for people who will be going into those polling units to cast their votes. Those ones outside, the security personnel outside, will be armed to ensure that nothing untoward happens to those going in to cast their votes. So for security, Anambra State presently is fully policed. Residents definitely should be assured that their safety is of the greatest concern to the IG, and they will be secured tomorrow.
Okay, I want to thank you very much indeed, Abel. Great reporting and your vigilance there and coverage and all the rest of it. Abel Ejikeme, Arise correspondent, talking to me there from the Anambra State capital, Awka. Now, it's arguably one of the biggest political developments in the run-up to the governorship election in Anambra State on Saturday. As you may know, there's been an announcement by the separatist group IPOB that it's cancelling what would have been a punishing week-long sit-at-home order it imposed on the southeast region to protest against the detention of its leader, Nnamdi Kanu. The order had threatened to overshadow the ballot and endanger voter turnout. So will this apparent ceasefire in a war waged against the Nigerian state by IPOB deliver the sort of confidence that will lead to a high voter turnout on Saturday? Or is the damage to confidence already done? And beyond this, has the Electoral Commission, INEC, managed to overcome all its logistical hurdles, or do obstacles remain? And with me in the studio, Professor Jibrin Ibrahim, Senior Fellow at the think tank, the Center for Democracy and Development, and Arise Abuja Head of News and Political Editor, Sumner Sambo. And also joining us from our other studio here in Abuja, the former presidential candidate under the banner of the United Democratic Party, Barrister Godson Okoye, who himself comes from Anambra State. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for staying with us. And let me come to you, Barrister Okoye. Thank you for your patience. You've got your people, contacts all across Anambra State. That's where you come from. What do you see as the main challenges that will be faced in this election?
Well, thank you very much for that lovely question. Well, you have somehow summarized what the issues are, but the ones that are not very well known to people will be the ones that people that are peculiar with Anambra politics will know. Yes, we are at least relieved that the ban and the non-participation in the election, that's the order given by IPOB has been lifted. We are beginning to see some reason, and on both sides, like what we have seen and the threats that have been made. If Anambra election did not go well, it may have affected most other elections or the national election as we go on. But having said this, and we commend both sides for allowing reason to prevail. And having said that, where the issues are the monetization of the politics of Anambra State, which is a very terrible development. It makes it difficult for the good people, good men to step forward. The amount of money required and the way the money is spent and the way the money is thrown around, good men and even young people, the youth we are talking about, they don't have that kind of money. It becomes a problem. But you see, in any kind of agitation, in any kind of disturbance, there are always subterranean issues, there are underground issues, there are, a whole lot of things that come to play. IPOB's issue had been as a result of lacuna in leadership at both the state and the national level. The leadership, the leadership vacuum has thrown up a group like IPOB to address them. But in the end, their message is essentially about lack of justice, lack of equity in the way the governance is handled. But that will be a discussion for another day. But in Anambra State, we should de-emphasize the effect of money, and we should de-escalate the level of violence that is being meted down on ordinary people. It won't go well for anybody. Good men should be allowed to step in. The young people should be allowed to step in. Women should be allowed to step in to participate. Because the orgy of violence we have seen in the past days or in the past week does not do the state any good.
Right.
Like scaring people from participating, people get dispersed. So a whole lot of issues are at play.
Right.
But
okay. Please stay with us. We're going to come back to you later in the program, but let me come to you, Professor Jibrin Ibrahim. Thank you very much indeed for staying with us. I'm just wondering if you've got your election monitors. I mean, you're a senior fellow at the Center for Democracy and Development. If you've got your election monitors and observers deployed in Anambra State, as you usually do with these elections, and all the usual gadgets and number crunching that you tend to do, that media houses and the rest of the country derive so much knowledge from.
Yes, we've got observers. It wasn't easy getting observers because a lot of people were rather afraid of possible outcomes. But eventually we did succeed in getting our observers, and we are deploying them today.
And do you think the Sumner Sambo, Arise political editor and Abuja head of news there, was pointing out earlier that the CDD, Center for Democracy and Development, had made a point that if there is low voter turnout, that will affect the legitimacy of the next governor of Anambra State. Can you expand on that sort of thing?
Yes, indeed, is one of our concerns. We looked at the numbers for the last gubernatorial election of 2017. It was 21.75% of eligible voters that turned out to vote. So our real concern is that if it goes below 20% of voters, then it becomes very difficult to justify it. Indeed, in 2017, I still remember we were asking the same questions, that with just 21.75% of voter turnout, what is the legitimacy of these elections? But we must also bear in mind that there are certain constitutions that require all citizens to vote. In fact, citizens are sanctioned if they do not vote. We do not have that in our constitution. In addition, we have no minimum level of voter turnout in our constitutional system. So even if it falls below 20%, at the legal level, there's no problem. But I think as these numbers continue to go down, 3 elections ago, Anambra was producing 33–35% voter turnout. Then it declined to the low 20s. And if it now falls below 20% voter, then that would seriously compromise in the minds of people the legitimacy of that election.
Absolutely. And let me bring you in, Sumner Sambo, without violating the restrictions that you set out earlier that are in force. I mean, do you expect the result of this election to be close, very close, or do you expect a clean, outright victory for one of the candidates?
Well, what I have anticipated as a keen political observer is that we may have a runoff election, considering how close these candidates all are. And I can tell you, Charles, it's a billionaire contest. Just like you heard your earlier guest say, if you don't have billions, you don't be in the top 4. So you have these guys who are all coming in with money, and we've seen instances of vote buying pre-election day, where people are being offered cash, and I can tell you loads of cash are going to go out on election day, and at the end of the day, it ends up confusing the voters, and there's nothing the electoral umpire can do about that. Because, I mean, you try to put all the things that you need to put in place, but eventually people are at liberty to do whatever they can. And it calls to the issue of legitimacy, just like he has said. At the end, would we be having a governor that's acceptable for winning this election, or he or she will be deemed as a governor that bought his or her way to power, or it's a conglomeration of some billionaires, you know, coming out to actually force someone on the citizenry. So it's a tough game, and it's a tough call for everyone, and we just hope that the rules of the game will be followed amidst the issues of insecurity. And it's enlightening to actually see that Igbo elders have come together, because Anambra is a key state. It's one of the oldest states in the country. And so if something goes wrong, it actually says a lot about the Southeast and how 2023 will be like.
So it's a key moment.
Yeah.
And with me in the studio, Professor Jibrin Ibrahim, Senior Fellow at the think tank, the Center for Democracy and Development, Arise Abuja Head of News and Political Editor Sumner Sambo, and the former presidential candidate under the banner of the United Democratic Party, Barrister Godson Okoye, who is from Anambra State. And I'll come straight away to you, Barrister Okoye. Thank you very much indeed for your patience. So you talked rather volubly earlier about issues around the elections, including the presence of IPOB, the potential intimidation that goes with it, as well as that from the politicians. But do you think all of that could throw up a surprise in this election, where perhaps we don't see one of the mainstream candidates winning this ballot, without mentioning any particular parties, of course, given the restrictions in force?
Well, thank you for your question. And the way Anambra State election is going and the result, maybe it may present some surprises, like Professor Jibrin had said. He talked about legitimacy. That's by way of the number of people that will turn up. That's the percentage of participation. It is very key, and our democracy is yet to interrogate that area. That is the percentage of voting public. You know, we need to look at that. Like he said, if it goes beyond below 20%, that will be a very funny threshold. But I will say that, the influence of money, yes, the influence of split in political parties, you know, because most of the parties were fractured before this election. And the moment you get fractured, you lose strength, you lose membership, and then it affects the ultimate output. And like one other person has said, it's a contest of billionaires. It may not be really that, but Anambra, yes, has a collection of a lot of wealthy men, and a number of them are in this race. And for different reasons. But like you say, first 4, first 5, and all that. But the result may end up, it may end up being a surprise, like you have opined in the past. You may have a very close election. There may even be a runoff the way it's going. But in the end, it may be a little surprising what we may get as a result of the election. And then of course the issue of presence of security operatives, the number of policemen in the state, the number of soldiers in the state, the number of other sister agencies. It would definitely touch on the turnout of voters. A lot of people want to play safe. Going by this number of policemen, they will say, okay, I don't want to be involved, I don't want to get hurt, and the people will stay.
Right,
and then
okay.
The issue of money.
All right, well, let me bring in Professor Ibrahim there. You were talking earlier, Professor, about the impact of IPOB. I mean, beyond the fact that they've given a stay-at-home order, there may well be members of IPOB who are not hearkening to the command of their central, if there's a central command, I mean, they may not be listening to that. And that could be a spanner in the works of what's been a reasonably good, well-modulated campaign, couldn't it?
Well, I do think so. There is concern that not all of the operatives on the ground may listen to directives from their leadership. But I'm very pleased with the detailed expose by Senator Ben Obi, who has drawn attention to how the elders in the state have really sat down with those operatives in the field and got them to understand that the stakes are very high and it's the future of that state that's on the ballot. So I do hope that this decision of IPOB may not be a bit late.
Yeah. And Sumner Sambo, we obviously on Arise News, we had a debate on television, which I think raised the standard and the bar of that election, or the candidates very well articulating their points, and we wanted to hold a second one, but obviously for security reasons we weren't able to do that. But obviously that's no guarantee of victory. But does that kind of thing energize the voters?
Yes, interesting, Charles. The most important message that came out of that debate is that it could actually hold within an atmosphere of fear, because a lot of broadcasters were afraid of actually holding it there. They had said it should be shifted to Lagos or Abuja and all of that. And I mean, it would have sent the wrong signals. So
but
we at Arise News had to,
as ever.
Yeah, we just had to actually do that to let people know that the nation is actually awaiting an election that's well organized, and then the element of fear should be removed, because yes, separatist agitations happen, I mean, globally in every society, but it shouldn't hinder some fundamental functions of state, like holding an election, which is an important part, because the absence of election will lead to anarchy. So it's in the interest of everyone, including the separatist agitators, for this exercise of the state to actually hold and pass as a phase. So just like he has pointed out some interesting perspectives as to why it is important for these elections to hold, we at Arise News feel that the media had to push out this message that the element of fear needs to be put away so that voters can have some confidence in the electoral system and then in the security services. And though the security services are being deployed everywhere in the state, it should also be deployed in such a way that it doesn't hinder the participation of voters, because voters are the most important element of the election.
Absolutely. So, Professor Jibrin, I mean, we're coming to the dying moments of this very interesting chat. From the point of view of the Center for Democracy and Development, what's your prognosis? How much confidence do you have in these elections?
Well, we've been reviewing and analyzing the processes so far. First of all, we are quite impressed with the preparedness of INEC. It has, we thought they'll have challenges with logistics, but they've shown that they are on top of the situation. Secondly, their engagement with the security forces has been very positive. And I think the emphasis they have laid on obeying the rules of engagement and not intimidating or frightening voters is for us a very positive sign. I think the third issue has to do with the voters themselves. It is important that they do not feel intimidated, that they realize the very high stakes for their future, the future of their children of these elections, and that they do come out and vote. The voting process has been made easier because INEC has introduced over 1,000 additional polling units, which means for the average voter, his polling units is closer to the residence, which means you can dash in, vote, and still quickly get back home if there's a need for that. But I think at the end of the day, what's really important is to have this confidence that if you do not exercise your citizenship rights, somebody else will take it away from you.
Professor Jibrin Ibrahim, Senior Fellow at the Center for Democracy and Development, Rise Head of News, Political Editor Sumner Sambo, and of course Barrister Godson Okoye, the former presidential candidate. Thank you very much indeed. That's it. Bye-bye.